now it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Dror Pimentel from Pimentel Academy of Art and Design, who has multiple scholarly works behind him, including the book, which is a major topic for today. Other books include The Dream of Purity, articles on continental philosophy, phenomenology, aesthetics, and semiotics. The list goes on. The title of Dror Pimentel's keynote address today is Hospitality in the Age of Econo Rhythm. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jorgen. The title might seem like ununderstandable, but I hope it will get clearer as I go along. I wanted just to show you my book. I mean, I can't do anything about this book. I mean, it's so expensive. I myself can't even afford to buy this book. So just have a look at it, because we talk all day about the book. So you have the book in your hands at the moment. If you like, I would be glad to send you an electronic version of it. Some of you already have it. Just write to me, and no problem. Do it glad. Okay. I'm the last for today. There is an upside and a downside for it. The downside is that you're all very tired, and I'm aware of it. And I try to make it easy on you as far as I can. The upside is like the whole discussion is accumulating, and I find myself like responding to several of you in this talk, which I find quite interesting, and how it should be. You know, philosophy is dialogical in its essence, as the Greek knows. Okay, so without further ado, I will start with your permission. First, I want to show you the structure of the talk. Okay, so we'll know where we're going. It's kind of an elaborate argument. We'll do it slowly. It has 5 sections, and each time I'll tell you where do I am. Okay, we start with the performative dimension of hospitality, then go to notion of an economy in the broad sense, then go to what they call the fundamental economies, which are the phenomenology, psychoanalysis, and Marxism. And then we go to the negation of negation, or this is the event as I understand it. And then we'll focus on phenomenology, the event in phenomenology. I'm going to introduce some new neologisms for you. Okay, for example, this instasis, for example, it's a neologism. We'll get to it, okay? So I will start with the performative dimension of hospitality. I'm very happy to be here with you at this conference dedicated to the theme of hospitality. Some of you have come from Israel, some from Europe, some from South Africa, and as I understand now, also from Taiwan, or yeah, wow. I know some of you personally. Shalom Gal, Shalom Chovav, Shalom Sivan, Shalom Noga, Shalom Carl, and Shalom Simon. So, I know you all. Some of you are complete strangers to me, and at this moment, I know you only by name. I am meeting you here for the first time. Yet, I am confident that the strangeness, which, as we know, is the starting point of every interpersonal relationship, even with the closest to us, will soon become a beginning of a wonderful friendship, if to quote a famous line from a famous movie. And since I'm already talking about hospitality, it is important to stress its performative dimension, we are not only talking about hospitality, but also and above all, doing hospitality. Therefore, I would like to begin by thanking my host, Dr. Torgel Fiel. I hope I pronounced your name.
Brilliant.
Thank you. I rehearsed that. And founder and chair of the Regnius Center for Philosophy and the Arts, and Professor Jürgen Wiesland. Weisland, sorry, Jürgen.
No problem.
Okay. Board member of the Regnius Center. I know very well that without you, none of this would have happened. And I thank you for it in the deepest sense of the word, a sense we will soon explore further. It is also worth noting your hospitality here as guests of the conference, which I am one of the organizers. I would like to thank to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you as deeply as possible for saying, here I am, in response to the call for papers, and for making the journey here to this two-day discussion on hospitality. For, as Levinas taught us, the yes saying to the absolute other, their hospitality is the moment in which the life of the host begins. Thus, in this sense, my life begins in the moment you listen to me. That is exactly what I wish to thank you for. Moreover, as we say in Hebrew, I am asir todah to you. In free translation, this expression means that my gratitude to you imprisons me within it. I am your prisoner of gratitude. My life depends on your yes saying. As the Derrida might have said, were he here with us, and in a sense he is with us, carried within us in a ventriloquist fashion in our thoughts and our writing. I, the host, and the hostess of your hospitality, to put it in a Derridian framing. So now I'll move to the concept that we start with, which is the economy. And soon you'll see how it relates to hospitality. And now that I have more or less concluded the discussion of the performative dimension of hospitality, although one never truly finishes with hospitality, I will turn to its theoretical discussion as indicated by the title of my talk, Hospitality in the Age of the Econo Rhythm, which for now may sound a bit unclear, but my hope is that it will become increasingly clear as we proceed. In a certain sense, this talk already steps beyond the book Aesthetics toward a new project in which I tend to realize an admittedly ambitious aim, aspiring to make hospitality the major theme of human existence. For this reason, it is first needed to probe the notion of economy, which is already addressed by Levinas and Derrida, you might know. As was already briefly suggested in my book, the deepest trait of human existence is being in the economy. From the earliest times, human existence has found expression in an economy that emerged among the members of the community that composed it. In this sense, to be a member of a community means to be a member of an economy. This fact has not escaped the attention of anthropologists, most notably Claude Lévi-Strauss, who uncovered the economy of underlying kinship relations, as you may know, but it has been overlooked by phenomenologists. Foremost and of them is Heidegger, for whom economy remains a lacuna in being and time, one he never addresses. Heidegger's brilliant analysis of human existence lacks engagement with economy as a fundamental trait of the human condition. That is, it omits the economic relation of exchange, which is precisely what Marx in the German ideology refers to with the suggestive term intercourse, a word that captures interpersonal relations in various forms, whether in the marketplace or in the bedroom. Just as Heidegger criticizes Husserl for his negligence of being, a critique that becomes the starting point of his whole philosophy, so too can Heidegger himself be criticized for his negligence of the economy. The focus should therefore shift from being in the world, which is the famous Heidegger title, in Being in Time, to being in the economy. In that sense, we must name the human being Homo economicus, as one who is already situated within an economy. So far, it's okay? I would like now to move beyond the narrow definition of economy as the exchange of goods and services toward a broader notion of the economy. In its broader sense, economy can serve as a general term for any system that ascribes measurable value to any given phenomenon. Economy is thus the human project whose essence lies in the bringing what is pre-economic into the realm of economy. That is, in giving it a measure and quantity, name and number, or in short, giving it a limit. This broader sense of economy is already embedded in the word economy itself. As is well known, the term economy originates from a fusion of two Greek words, nomos and oikos, forming together the oikonomos. The first word, nomos, means law. Thus, economy is tied to law in the sense of assigning limits and measures, of enclosing, restricting, or what I would refer to as writing, the broad sense, which includes inscription, delimitation, and codification, for instance. The second word, oikos, means house, or more precisely, an estate or a household. The word economos then can be understood literally as the law of the house, or more flexibly as the law that makes the house possible. That is, the law that enables human life, which is always already situated within the house, and by extension, always already within the economy. Now the question arises, what is that pre-economic element that precedes all economy? In this we have an argument, Simon. Those among you who have read my book, already know that I refer to this element by the Hebrew name harav. It was mentioned across the day. Now it's time to focus on this, I would say, the main concept of aesthetics. This term in Hebrew, which I left by purpose, I didn't translate it because it is untranslated, and I left you, the non-Hebrew speakers, to break your teeth with this term, as Heidegger does with the ereignis, okay, which is also untranslatable. And I think you'll find it nice that you would know some Hebrew words, like an exotic language, which is the first language. We have respect to Hebrew, please. So the language of the Bible. So in Hebrew, riv has three meanings. One is multiplicity, okay? It's a lot of things. This is the riboy, the multiplicity. The second is the conflict or quarrel, riv. I am in riv with you. I rav with you, okay? This is how we explain this term in Hebrew. And we have also the ribono, the sovereignty, okay? Now, the fusion of these three meanings yields the full conceptual weight of harav. It is that which is multiplicity in perpetual conflict with itself and with others, and as such serves as the source of sovereignty. The source which all those who claim to be sovereign ultimately derive their sovereignty from. In this sense, Harav is a relentless source of violence, which I refer to as the violence of the origin, or primordial violence. As the texts dealing with the origin, whether that of Freud, Heidegger, or Benjamin, I won't name them, you probably know them, show us the beginning was not harmonious or peaceful at all. The beginning was violent. In the beginning, there was violence. Against this very backdrop, economy, in its broad sense, must be understood as a negation in various contexts, we soon probe, of that primordial violence of the origin of Harav. Much like the controlled detonation of an atomic energy within the nuclear reactors for the purpose of generating electricity, the economy negates the violence of Harav by incorporating it into a system of writing, that is, into all those structures of measure and quantification that characterize every form of economy. Economy, in the broad sense, is thus a reduction of Harav, to borrow a Husserlian term. It is a practice whose very core involves reduction and negation, and as a consequence, a loss. Alongside acknowledging the multiplicity of economies, we can narrow them down to what can be called meta-economy, or simply fundamental economy. So I'm using here, I'm taking a Heideggerian term of the fundamental and ontology, okay? Instead of fundamental ontology, I say fundamental economy. The number of those fundamental economies is not unlimited. It can be set at 3. These are 3 economies that encompass human existence in its numerous aspects. The first fundamental economy is the economy of perception, to which phenomenology is dedicated. The second is the economy of sexuality, to which psychoanalysis is devoted. And third is the economy of production, the focus of Marxism. Perception, sexuality, and production, with all what they entail, are the 3 realms in which what is called the human exists. And you can challenge this. And like, if you have another economy of mind, I'd like to hear it. In each of these economies, what evades economy, but nevertheless lies in its foundation, Harav, appears in a different guise and takes on a different name. Each of these economies that negate Harav does so by different means. I will now briefly address the name of Harav in each of these 3 economies, along with the name of the economy in which it is negated. We will start with phenomenology. Yeah, I mean, this is okay. This is a sum up of the argument. We'll start with phenomenology and the fundamental economy of plena. The name of Harav in Husserlian phenomenology, particularly in the crisis of the European sciences, is plena or flux. That is the phenomenal pre-predicative world, or what Husserl famously calls the life world, the Lebenswelt. This plena is negated by modern science, which subjects it to the constraints of fundamental economy of measurable values, where everything is quantified in terms of weight, volume, size, speed, location, and so on. It's modern physics. This scientific economy culminates in the term matesis universalis, formulated by Leibniz, which means, as Galileo puts it, Galileo, the first modern scientist, as Husserl sees it. The book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. This is matesis universalis. That mathematics is universal. Everything can be mathematicized. Okay, according to the logic of modern science, from Galileo to the present day, nothing escapes the economy of matesis universalis. Everything is quantifiable and hence intelligible, which means it could be reasonable, could be thought with reason. Now move to psychoanalysis and the fundamental economy of enjoyment. Harav, in its psychoanalytic context, is what Freud identifies with enjoyment, or in French this is jouissance. The excessive enjoyment is the essence of the primordial father in Totem and Taboo. As described in this text, this endless fusion of enjoyment and violence, which always go hand in hand, becomes unbearable to the son's brothers who suffer under its tyranny. As a result, they join forces to kill the father, thus founding the first social contract based on the prohibition of incest and murder. In doing so, they establish the fundamental economy of, in its psychoanalytical context, what we may call the Oedipal economy. This economy is based on a reduction, or in psychoanalytical terms, castration, of the infinite enjoyment of the primordial father into the vestige of enjoyment permitted to the Oedipal father. The Oedipal father is thus situated within the economy of the community of the castrated, whose core operation is the conversion of enjoyment, jouissance, into the vestige of the economy of pleasure, of the pleasure principle, the plaisir. Now go to the fundamental economy of Marxism, which centers around production. Harav, in its Marxist context, is productivity. Marx, the materialist, translates all human activity, including thought, into material values of production. The human being is a producing entity, homo faber, and production is the driving force behind their existence. This production is brought under the yoke of economy through the transition from use value to exchange value in Marxist terms, which defines the commodity market. In the commodity market, every product is assigned a nominal value derived by comparing it to a common denominator applicable to all other commodities in the market. Initially, this common denominator was prestigious metals. Later, it was replaced by money. Today, it has undergone full abstraction and exists as digital figures in bank accounts. What matters for us is that the ceaseless human productivity, which constitutes harav in the Marxist sense, is negated in the economy of commodity. The recognition of the structural similarity between these three fundamental economies and the act of negation they each perform on harav is what struck me with a sense of astonishment or wonder. This wonder is what motivates my writing. For, as both Husserl and Heidegger reminds us, all theory begins in wonder. That's the Greek taumazei, including this theory of harav. Okay, so you got it, the three, okay. Now we go to this is the first negation. Now we go to the negation of the negation, which I identify with the notion of the event. Yet, the economy is not hermetic. In each of the fundamental economies described hereby, there are ruptures, wounds, through which Harav breaks forth. This phenomenon of the re-emergence of Harav, despite its prior negation, I refer to as the negation of negation. That is, the initial negation, the reduction of Harav by the fundamental economy, is itself negated by a secondary negation, which opens the way for Harav to resurface. In an operatic fashion, one must say, for you, Simon, it's not direct, it's operatic in the Derridian sense. Through the economy, this is what I call the event. And this is also what I call hospitality. In this sense, event and hospitality are synonymous. Hospitality must be thought in terms of an event, and the event is always an event of hospitality. The event of hospitality is always a wounding of an economy. What is given hospitality in the event is nothing other than the alterity of Harav. This is the reasoning underlying the claim I made in the outset of my book, that hospitality is the most pressing concept of today. Why? Because hospitality generates a critical bifurcation between two opposed forms of discourse. On the one side, there is the discourse that refuses to acknowledge the existence of radical alterity and thus denies any possibility of its manifestation within the economy as an event of hospitality. According to this discourse, the economy is of a totalitarian nature, an absolute structure from which nothing escapes. This is the neoliberal, hyper-capitalist discourse whose most extreme expression is found today in the MAGA movement in the United States. On the other side, there is discourse that recognizes the existence of radical alterity as what persists in a pre-economic being. This discourse sanctifies the event of hospitality, that wound through which Harav emerges as the vanishing point from which everything begins: subjectivity, society, labor, knowledge, love, and more. Included in this discourse are the critical discourses of phenomenology, psychoanalysis, and Marxism, each of which acknowledges the wounds that cut through the economy in its perceptive context. Now I name the wounds of these economies, okay? You have it already. In the context of psychoanalysis, this event of hospitality emerges in relation to the notion of the uncanny, that's Unheimliche, that was discussed earlier today by Joke. Within Marxist thought, the event can be approached through the enigmatic figure of Odradek, the peculiar creature from Kafka's short story, The Cares of a Family Man. Odradek serves as a paradigmatic example of an object that eludes the economy of commodity, an object that resists functioning as a fetish in the Marxist sense. Due to lack of time, I will not go further into these examples, as they are discussed at length in my book. Instead, I will focus on the meaning of the event within the framework of phenomenology. Now, I move to the event in the phenomenological sense, which I'll say more about it. With regard to the unfolding of the event of hospitality and phenomenology, the first question we must ask here concerns the nature of the original plenitude, plena, which I mentioned earlier. Husserl emphasizes the harmonious aspect of this plenitude, its seamless flow, but I would argue that Husserl is aiming for the best of all possible worlds, a world that does not really exist. Against Husserl's harmonious plenitude, I would propose to set the intrusive violence of Harav. In contrast to plenitude, Husserl, as we have seen, places the economy of Matesis universalis, the scientific economy, which translates the plenitude of the life world into measurable, quantifiable objects of science. Yet this translation inevitably idealizes and thereby loses the richness of the life world. This is also an argument against science. The point I wish to stress is that the situation is not harmonious at all. Contrary to what Husserl would have us believe, the eruptions of Harav pierce through the thin veil of the Matesis universalis. The violence of Harav wounds the economy of science and thereby also wounds the economy of perception, piercing through it into the core of subjectivity. This is where we can speak of trauma. In Greek, trauma literally means a wound caused by a foreign body. The traumatic wound scars memory and in many ways becomes the constitutive experience of subjectivity. The traumatic event, the penetration of Harav through the economy of science and perception is precisely the meaning of hospitality in the phenomenological sense. It is the hosting of the violence of Harav within perception inscribed as a wound in subjectivity. From this, we can conclude that the homeostatic state in which the subject is supposed to reside, as Freud tells us, is not disrupted by an ecstatic outward transgression, as Heidegger would have it. As Heidegger teaches us, the prefix ek in Latin means outside or being outside. In Heideggerian terms, the being outside of Dasein refers to the leap from the ontic level of beings to the ontological level of being. Heidegger inscribed this insight in the word existence by inserting a hyphen within it, reinscribing it as ek-existence. This is what he does in Letter to Humanism, thereby uncovering the latent prefix ek, which means being outside. Hence, in Heideggerian terms, existence is literally ek-existence, that is, to stand outside oneself toward being. This is Heidegger's meaning of human existence. However, instead of the ecstatic of existence, I wish to introduce the notion of instasis. The disruption of the subject's homeostatic balance does take place, but not via a transgression toward being. Rather, the rupture takes place through an inward intrusion, a traumatic penetration of Harav into the innermost confines of subjectivity. To be human is to host Harav in an event that pierces the economy of perception and wounds the core of subjectivity. Thus, human being is not ecstatic, but rather instatic. To insist in this reconfigured sense is not to affirm or persist, but rather to bear within subjectivity itself as a site of hospitality, the radical alterity of Harav. The essence of human existence then does not lie in existence, but rather in what we might call insistence. Okay, so we can now gather the threads of the argument and say the following. Human existence is mediated through three fundamental economies: the economy of sexuality, of production, and the economy of perception. Each of these fundamental economies is disrupted by what has been called the event of hospitality of Harav. This event assumes different names in the various economies: the uncanny, Ododek, and instasis. Okay, now look, I come to the concluding part of this talk. I want to talk about the notion of the algorithm. And here is the neologism of economy and algorithm. It comes to econorism. Not only why, not the rhythm, but the algorithm. Okay. I'm okay with the time?
Yes, you have You have 5. You
I
have
have 5?
You have
Oh.
6.
Oh, wow.
6
So
minutes.
generous of you. Thank
6
you.
minutes.
Okay. So I would now like to devote the rest of the time of this talk to pose a question regarding the fate of the economy in our present era, the digital age. Some say that the digital age fundamentally transforms human existence, opening up possibilities that were previously unimaginable. For instance, it enables the collection of data in a volume that was not possible before, in what is known as the big data. But has the digital age truly brought about a fundamental change in the economy? Or is it merely another version of the economy, one that simply occurs in a new medium without truly changing the nature of the economy itself? According to the Greek economist Yanis Varoufakis, and I recommend you to listen to him, read him, a fundamental change has indeed occurred in the economy. However, this change does not lie in the nature of the economy itself, but rather in the nature of the capital that underlies it. Contrary to common belief, capital is not simply synonymous with wealth, but rather refers to the means of production, the ownership of which is what generates wealth. This is the Marxist story that in the feudal era, capital was land owned by barons, which while serfs were required to pay rent to live on and work that land, this rent was the source of the baron's wealth. The transition to capitalism in the 18th century was marked by the replacement of land capital with capital in the form of means of production, that is, factories that enabled mass production of various artifacts. In our current era, however, this is Varoufakis' argument, the capital has been replaced once again by what he calls cloud capital. The owners of the virtual space, the cloud, are the new barons of our time, whose wealth stems from the rent paid by users for their cloud services. For example, anyone who wishes to sell their goods on Amazon site owned by Jeff Bezos must pay a rent of 40%. This is what is happening. This new virtual space, the terra incognita of the 21st century, could have been democratic and open for use by all, as envisioned by some of its original developers. But in practice, it has been seized by the cloud barons, whose number does not exceed 10, and who have turned it into their private property. In doing so, they have created for themselves immense wealth. Just to illustrate, Elon Musk, mentioned earlier, is not only the richest person in the world today, but he is the richest person in history, richest person ever existed. The cloud barons of today are thus no different from the land barons of the feudal era. In this period, Varoufakis refers to the current situation as techno-feudalism. The absolute control of the cloud barons over the virtual space has led to the creation of a new kind of feudalism, which is the virtual feudalism, that is essentially no different from the feudalism of the Middle Ages. From this, we can conclude that the fundamental structure of the economy has not truly changed. The only thing that has changed is the medium in which it takes place, from material land to virtual cloud. What still appears to be new in the so-called new economy are its values of measurement. This is the algorithm which now governs most popular applications such as Spotify, Facebook, and Waze. In this sense, the new economy is what I call the Econo rhythm. As mentioned in the title of this talk, that is the economy of the algorithm. It is worth noting that the algorithm is not a new phenomenon. It has existed since ancient times. In its broadest sense, an algorithm refers to any practice that involves calculation. In this sense, the clay tablets of Babylonian culture, which were used to calculate the buying and selling of goods, are a form of an algorithm. The algorithm, in its contemporary sense, is based on the assumption that with the aid of what is called machine learning, in which the application we use learns our behavioral patterns, it is possible to produce a comprehensive algorithmic model of our behavior which can predict our future actions. The name of the game is the pursuit of total algorithmization of the world and of the human behavior, not only in consumer culture, but also in earlier areas such as language and thought. On this algorithmic foundation rests the latest technological craze, artificial intelligence. And if you ask me, there is no real thinking in artificial intelligence. Okay, let's put it on the table. It has nothing to do with human thought, which is singular and irreplaceable. But this discussion I will leave for another occasion. The scope of the current algorithmic use is vast, not just in leisure culture, but also for military purposes. For instance, in the war in Gaza, Israeli intelligence developed an algorithm which is called Lavender Machine, this is its real name, that helped build a bank of legitimate targets and quantify the collateral damage that would result from striking them. It's all algorithm designs. This is, as is well known, just the tip of the iceberg. In the future, wars are expected to be conducted through artificial intelligence and drones, effectively eliminating the need for human involvement. The algorithm has become a kind of a tool that allows human beings to assume the role of God by virtue of the ambition to quantify everything and from here to know everything and to control everything. What matters for us is that in such a world, there is no room for hospitality. The algorithmic universe is a space devoid of hospitality and hence devoid of ethics. The aspiration of those who believe in the algorithm is to reach a point where every form of alterity undergoes a process of algorithmization, which would allow no rupture or wound to this economy. In other words, in the age of the econo, we are witnessing only the first negation, the negation of harav by the algorithmic economy. While the second negation, the negation of the negation, previously described in terms of the uncanny, holodeck, and insist in stasis, is no longer possible. The technological vision of econo is therefore a nightmarish vision, one that does not acknowledge the existence of radical alterity, does not permit its appearance in the economy, and therefore does not allow for the event of hospitality. For this very reason, it is utmost important that we, philosophers, curators, artists, place hospitality at the forefront of our discourse in a world that has been accustomed to negate it. For it is hospitality and not artificial intelligence that constitutes the essence of what is called the human. To be human means to host radically other. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to invite questions and comments, and I'll give myself the privilege of putting forward a couple of comments. concerning something as esoteric as quantum physics. And I'm bringing up this topic because the insight the scientists in physics and quantum physics can provide is essential for our understanding of what you are talking about here, the economy, econo-rhythm, and the negation of the econo-rhythm. We're dealing with, in the world of ideas, we are still working within a system of dialectical oppositions that have their ground in an age-old determinism. And I see that as a danger. In the physical world, there's no such thing as determinism. Everything is spontaneous. In the 1930, the great physicist and quantum physicist Werner Heisenberg was doing research at the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen, where he concluded his research on subatomic particles, electrons, with the astounding insight that an electron only exists when it collides with another electron. Between two collisions of one electron with the other, neither electron exists. This is what Heisenberg said. This is not a case in the natural world, in the physical world. We have no violent disruptions, no violent intrusions, because everything occurs according to a law that exceeds our imaginations as philosophers or aestheticians. Only scientists can come to some mode of insight into the spontaneity and the natural disorder that exists in the cosmos. We have indeterminism, the indeterminate, unpredictability, relationality, a world of complete indeterminacy where it is impossible, as Heisenberg found out and proved in the year 1930. That's quite a long time ago. That's 100 years ago, almost 100 years, well, 95 years ago, to be exact, that the electron does not exist until it collides with another electron. All right, this is essential, and I see none of these philosophers, Foucault, Derrida, Heidegger, talking about the natural spontaneity and something like natural spontaneous compassion, which is not a violent intrusion. It is a natural spontaneous dismantling of determinism, and the negation of the negation is the negation of the dialectical opposition. That's the negation of the negation. Okay. So my suggestion is that we look more at the physical sciences and start building a bridge with the physical sciences in order to achieve a higher level of cognition of what is really going on in the cosmos. That's all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry for talking so long.
We are negotiating. Can I respond? Okay. I'll give you my response in one equation. E equals MC. That's it. That's it. All what I have to say. Because this is the total thesis of universalis of the universe, which describes the essence of the universe according to science. Okay. Now, it's an equation. It's an equation. It's an algorithm. Okay. Now, this is my my first part of the answer. The second answer is that if you adopt a phenomenological view, Husserl is not against the science, okay? He says that the physical science of his age, he also addresses Einstein. If you read the crisis, he addresses Einstein and also Heisenberg. Also Heidegger addresses Heisenberg. They are off track because this is not the real science. The rigorous science, the real science is the science of phenomenology. Because before you say what is the phenomenon, in this case the scientific phenomenon, you have to portray the conditions of the appearance of the phenomenon. And this is rigorous science, and this is phenomenology.
Question? Who goes first?
Okay. Thank you so much. I have plenty of questions, but maybe I will just put one or two of them now. So, first one is a bit of an ontological question. When you speak about the haraf as something like a threefold almost, with these three dimensions that are reducible to three meanings. Yes. What then is the unity of these three aspects? So why then give it one name?
You're thinking dialectics. You're thinking that it all come into a unity, the absolute. There is no unity. I mean,
well, you don't speak of you don't speak of three different forces.
Like everything is
one.
Like everything in the IDF is three. Like we have three platoons. So I also adopted that. But challenge me. Give me the fourth. I would like to hear it.
No, I would be rather interested in what allows it to give it the same name to all three.
It's one word which has
denomination.
It's not ontological. It's the meaning of this word. This word means these three. You can extract these three meanings from this word. Like we talked about the Ereignis yesterday. Okay, Ereignis is an event. It has to do with Eigentlichkeit, with becoming appropriate, becoming self. It's all together. It's all together, and they're three apart. There is no unity here. This is why this word is untranslatable. Also, the difference is untranslatable. Don't even try to do it. Okay? It resists translation. This concept resists translation. This is what I was trying to do.
Further questions?
Maybe we do a round of several questions.
That's a great idea. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Just clarification questions. Who was the first philosopher to talk about calculation?
Calculation or economy?
Calculation.
The notion of Mathesis universalis belongs to
I mean calculation.
Okay, so with regard to the question, then answer.
Yeah, let's just ask a few questions and let him answer.
And then the other one is the event,
yes,
which I've been told is sometimes associated with Paul. Paulinian.
Paulus.
Saul.
He has the what is called the changing of the heart. How would you say? Conversion. That's the conversion. You're referring to the conversion? Yes?
No, it's a question. I don't know.
Okay.
Just a quick question about you say about instasis.
Instasis, yes.
Instasis. Well, I think ecstasis, which refer to ecstasy, that's kind of opening up oneself. Isn't that more referent to hospitality? I mean, one has to be out of oneself in order to be, or maybe I understand you wrong.
Just to say, you say that the Econo rhythm might be the end of hospitality. Well, if you converse with ChatGPT, it does the utmost to be the perfect host.
Do you really believe it?
To mirror exactly what you want. So if if it thinks I want a Levinasian reading of something, it will give it me
He
completely.
won't give it to you.
If it wants a Heideggerian, if he thinks I want Heideggerian, it will give it me. Of course, it's imitating and it's false, but maybe that's the scary thing. It's playing a game of hospitality.
Oh,
It's
so
programmed
you
to.
agree? There is no hospitality.
I agree. Completely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which hospitality does not imitate other kinds of hospitality? We'll learn what's authentic.
It's programmed to do it.
Yeah, let's take questions for Dror first, and then we can.
Thanks. I have a few questions, but the main summary is why so pessimistic? And I'll explain a little bit or maybe I'm wrong that it is a pessimistic view. Just quickly remind me that the Republic, I think, the ideal city falls apart because they can't calculate the right birthing time for people, which maybe does fit in some way. But yeah, and then maybe I misunderstood this, but it seems like there's a contradiction or just an antinomy that you touched on between this kind of expanding algorithm, which is going to, and whether or not the algorithm is, or I think we'd all agree that these algorithms, as you pointed out, are expanding to take over more and more. And I think you're following or extending Derrida's argument also.
He commented on the email as far as I know.
Emails and phone, yeah, but the emails and the phones, the way that they're shrinking. I guess for him it was shrinking, shrinking the ability for hospitality because of this kind of move toward. I already see there a digital movement of a shifting sense of presence because of these.
So what is the question?
So the contradiction, I'm wondering if it is a contradiction for you, maybe misunderstood it. On the one hand, you're saying that there's an expansive kind of algorithmic taking over of the possibility for hospitality.
No, this is not what I'm saying.
So you're not saying that.
No.
So
I'm saying that the expansion of the algorithm prevents the possibility of hospitality. This is what I'm saying. There is no hospitality in the algorithm. This is what I'm saying.
So I guess you're saying it as it expands, it takes away the possibility for hospitality.
Right.
And you're saying at the same time, I thought, and this is where I thought the contradiction maybe is or maybe not, that it can never fully, the algorithm will never take over the human.
Right. Right. And
But
we have
still-
to
so
we have to
you're saying
insist about it. We have to
But then at
insist.
the end, you're saying we have to fight it, which that's why it seems pessimistic, as if you're saying it never will take over the human. We need to fight it so that it doesn't take over the human.
Okay, I get
That's-
it. Okay, I get it. So should I start with about?
We have a few more.
Yeah, few more. Wow, I have 4 already.
Yeah, there will be
No, just another one, and then mercy. I want to give a proper reply.
For second round.
Yeah, second round. So Choba will be the last one. We have time, gentlemen. We have time, and ladies, we have time.
Blow.
You don't? At least this evening I have time. You know?
In your scheme of fundamental economies, you put under the Rav plena, enjoyment, and production.
Right.
Are they described the Rav? Are they part of the Rav?
No,
or is outside of them?
No. These are different manifestations of Hara. What is production? What is work? Work is energy. It's the human energy of the muscles. It's energy. It's sheer.
answering.
I'm not answering? Sorry. You're right.
So,
sorry. So what is the question?
The question is in my, as far as I know, jouissance is beyond pleasure.
I talk to this jouissance, pleasure. Okay.
Pleasure
Okay, I have an answer for you. It's okay. I have an
The
answer.
pleasure principle is to settle at the energies, and the jouissance is over it.
No, I will take a break here, okay? Because I don't want to forget the questions.
And then your colleague.
Maybe there's no more questions.
We were almost.
I didn't want to.
Look like, no, I'm very glad about these questions.
Okay, so you get
So-
to answer, and then we have to draw a line after your answers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
We are
So-
way over time.
First, Tom's question about calculation. Okay, I would say that calculation starts with philosophy. You know, I mean, like the calculation of enjoyment in Socrates' ethics, for example. Okay, there is a bond between reason and calculation, and it gets worse in the Renaissance. This is Husserl's argument that the Greeks, the ancients, they only calculated. They had only the tools of geometry and mathematics. They calculated the phenomenon in terms of this is the primary characteristics or the primary characteristic of the object. But what with the secondary characteristic, with color, with speed, they left uncalculated, and this is where Galileo steps in. When he goes to the Tower of Pisa and drops the object, he measure the speed of the drop of the object. This is what he is completing the project, the calculation project of the ancient science into the secondary characteristics, the speed, the color, the structure and everything. So, to your question, okay. Now to your question, you brought back the issue of existence. Okay, so yeah, in ecstasy you are outside of yourself towards the other, and this is what enables hospitality. This is your argument, as far as I understand it. Okay, I'm trying to shift the focus and think about hospitality in terms not of you reaching the other, but the alternative reaches you. Okay, it penetrates you regardless of your will. This is the traumatic dimension of this hospitality of insistence, which I'm talking about. So you have to reconfigure the thought about the relation of the self to the outside of the other, etc. Okay. Now, David, you talk about the chat, right? ChatGPT? No?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I'll give you, as far as I understand, it's all about money, okay? Because the real information in the internet costs money, like JSTOR. There you have all the the big texts and the academic articles. ChatGPT does not reach there. It's only on the surface. It goes to Wikipedia, you're asking, okay, what is the meaning of Husserl's reduction? You get a Wikipedia answer. I mean, this is what it does. Instead of you going to this Wikipedia and then another site and then another site, Google it. It just concentrates you in, but it's not deep. It's really not deep, and you can tell. I can still tell.
So,
when my students copy from ChatGPT, I know.
So if you will have access to JSTOR,
so still, it wouldn't be human. It would never be human.
Why not?
Why not? Because there is this human singularity.
What is it? What is it?
Insistence. We had a conference with Betzalel this year in the winter, and there was a talk about the AI in the visualization of AI. Like, for example, in architecture, you can tell the AI, draw me a picture of a Roman villa, and it looks like a Roman villa, but it's not really. Okay, there's something odd, there's something uncanny there. They put the window inside, or
You're saying it looks like a Picasso.
what? The Picasso is no.
Sorry,
Okay. Now, okay, yes. Now, Lonnie, can you remind me of the question?
Is there a contradiction between, and this is connected to the technology question, you seem to think on the one hand that the human can't be reduced to an algorithm, but you're also calling for kind of fighting the algorithm at the same time.
I'm not fighting the algorithm. Come on. Listen, there is a difference. This difference goes down to history to Plato. Plato has the notion of doxa. You have the doxa and you have the episteme, okay? The episteme is true knowledge, what the philosophers know. The doxa is, it could be right, but it also could be wrong, Okay, this is the way of thinking of the crowd. This is the doxa. Now the doxa exists also today. The project, the philosophical project, is not for the masses. It's only for what Heidegger calls the rare and the few. Okay, so they think that artificial intelligence is really thinking. Okay, what can I do?
I guess I come to the question of, I guess it seems like a pessimistic view. I mean, even if this stuff is bad in a way, the fact that it's growing doesn't necessarily...
It's always pessimistic. Remember when Facebook came out, they say that Facebook will... The revolution in Egypt is an outcome of Facebook because it allowed the citizens to talk. And then what happens? The barons take over this power and they fuel it to their direction, and they monetize it. Everything is being monetized. This is the harsh truth of internet, okay? How come we have only 10 or even less 5 internet barons? This is Zuckerberg and Musk and Joseph Bezos and who else, okay? How come such a big, such a vast force is concentrated in the hands of so many? How does it come? Okay? There is no, this is why I'm pessimistic. It always goes to the people with the money. It's never democratized, never really helped us. Okay. Now, yeah, about the Plaisir, about the jouissance and plaisir. This is an issue of translation, because there is the famous text of Freud, beyond the pleasure principle. Okay, and okay, the pleasure principle that in Hebrew it's Econo oneg. It's a mistranslation. It's not. It's the pleasure principle of homeostasis. So jouissance is always beyond the economy of plaisir. Okay. So when we translate it to Me'ever Econo oneg, it's a mistake. It's a crude mistake of the translator.
But he's argued, but he suggested you something with this harav and the jouissance.
That,
maybe you could say something about this.
Harav, jouissance is the form of harav in psychoanalytical sense. This is out of the economy, and it's very dangerous. You know, sorry. There is the homeostasis of the pleasure principle is violated by jouissance.
Exactly.
Okay, you know what Zizek says about it? It's nice, but maybe we'll conclude with it. It says, the end of the fantasy is a nightmare.
Pain.
Yeah.
It's also pain.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow your jouissance, you won't end well, I would say.
All right. So I have a lot to say about that, but I will spare my I have to put a strain on myself here.
Oh,
we will discuss further over dinner, which is in only 1 hour. So please, everyone, go and change your whatever if you're going to change anything. And then we will head down to the beach.
I'm not taking the first thing.
I have to change anyway. So then we'll head down to the beach. It's just 5 minutes down there. It's a nice big building on the boulevard. Vice versa is the name of that restaurant. So we'll meet there. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.